The currency that was invented as a joke, in fact, becomes the real currency.
Right.
Oh, wow.
No, absolutely. To the moon.
To the moon.
Whether you realize it or not, the world in terms of currency isn't as basic as one would like to think or even believe. The currency market is one that has all sorts of catches and uncertainties and rates that are constantly monitored in order to ensure that things are legitimate and fair. And that's where the controversy around Bitcoin and cryptocurrency likes to come into play, because this is very much a wild card in the world of currency and many have various opinions on it, while others just aren't sure of what to make of it, so thus allow us to show you everything that you need to know about the Bitcoin hype. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The question of Bitcoin. So, to those of you who aren't familiar with the world of currency as a whole, you may have heard of Bitcoin or things like Dogecoin and so on and wondered, what exactly is it? Well, in short, it's a kind of digital money, but for a longer explanation, here's a more detailed breakdown of it. Bitcoin is a digital currency that was created in January of 2009. It follows the ideas set out in white paper by the mysterious and pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, the identity of the person or persons who created the technology, it is still a mystery. Bitcoin offers the promise of lower transaction fees than traditional online payment mechanisms, and unlike government-issued currency, it is operated by a decentralized authority. Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency. There are no physical Bitcoins, only balances kept on a public ledger that everyone has transparent access to. All Bitcoin transactions are verified by a massive amount of computing power. Bitcoins are not issued or backed by any sort of bank or government, nor are individual Bitcoins valuable as a commodity. Despite it not being a legal tender, Bitcoin is very popular and has triggered the launch of hundreds of other cryptocurrencies, collectively referred to as altcoins. Bitcoin is commonly abbreviated as BTC. While this may sound kind of like a fraud or a scheme, it is actually extremely popular. And there are various kinds of sites and even major companies that use Bitcoin for purchases because of the lack of fees, and even in certain cases, the dark web, we are used because of their ability to not be tracked. After all, it's not there, so there's nothing to track, per se at least. But the point is, this is a new kind of money out there, and people are very interested in it, and many are very closely monitoring as its value rises and lowers. But should you yourself get involved in Bitcoin if you have the chance? Volatility with Bitcoin. Here's a thing you absolutely need to know about Bitcoin. As of right now, it is arguably doing better than ever. It did take a dip in the stock market recently, which we're gonna get to, but hey, overall, it's on a high. In fact, it was selling at over $50,000 per share. In contrast, it was only $10,000 in February of 2020. So a pretty huge difference if you couldn't tell. Now the reason for this? People are buying into it. And not just a common man, but big companies like Tesla have also started to get in on it. And then what happens? People pay attention and the value rises. The story right now is institutional adoption, said Stephen McCone, Associate Professor of Finance at the University of Oregon. The arrival of qualified custodians and other key infrastructure has facilitated the onboarding of significant institutional capital in a way that was unfeasible just a few years ago. Despite Bitcoin's recent rise, you still need to be careful. While the flagship cryptocurrency appears to be maturing, it is still extremely volatile in both directions. For regular investors, that means you should tread lightly with this speculative asset class unless you have your fundamentals like an emergency fund and basic retirement portfolio completely covered. Why is that? Because not unlike regular stocks, Bitcoin can rise and fall in value based on events and people that have nothing to do with you. As noted, Tesla and Elon Musk bought into Bitcoin and even went so far as to get $1.5 billion in Bitcoin to show their dedication to it. This did cause things to rise for a bit, but then it also fell and kind of harshly affected both Tesla and Bitcoin as a whole. Why the drop? Well, some think that it was because of a tweet by Elon Musk that could be viewed as insulting Bitcoin. So for a cryptocurrency to be affected by someone's words on Twitter? Yeah, that's pretty volatile. And Bitcoin has a bit of a bad habit of rising really high in value and then dropping like a stone at times, leaving many people holding the bag. Not exactly what you'd want in a more stable currency, right? And yet, more companies are buying in. As noted, there are some big companies buying into the concept of Bitcoin, including big names like Tesla, but not just in their field. BNY Mellon, which can trace its roots back to the 18th century, is the latest big name to adapt to the world of Bitcoin. The financial services giant plans to help its asset management customers utilize Bitcoin, essentially treating it like any other security. Meanwhile, MasterCard had said that it would process Bitcoin payments on its network in an effort to give businesses and customers more choice in how they buy things. Note that Elon Musk's infatuation with the digital currency, that's nothing new, and it jibes with his affinity for unconventional investments and ideas, which you could argue is how he got his name to be so big in the world of engineering and business, but hey, we digress. In its annual report, Tesla said it added $1.5 billion of Bitcoin as part of a larger policy to earn more on its cash that it doesn't need to keep the company going. Now, this alternative reserve will also look into gold bullion, gold exchange traded funds, and potentially other assets in the future. The company, which is valued at slightly less than $900 billion, also said that it plans to begin taking Bitcoin as payment in the near future, which could be helpful for certain customers who may not have the money on hand for a Tesla car, but have saved up enough Bitcoin through various means to be able to purchase one, or at least make a down payment. With these big companies getting involved, more and more people are likely to go and jump on the bandwagon as well. The gamble. Now, that all being said, while many are willing to risk a lot on Bitcoin, some, they're not so sure. Those who have gone and seen the volatility of it all paint a picture of it being more like gambling than investing in things like more traditional stocks. Mark Cuban, a businessman and billionaire, was very much of that opinion, and others know that you should only put in what you're willing to lose. Now, you have to at least be mentally prepared and financially prepared that a crash could happen again. It could happen tomorrow. Of course, despite its high selling price, you can go and buy as little as even $5 of Bitcoin, because there is the ability to buy fractional shares called Satoshis, points out Anthony Pompliano, co-founder of cryptocurrency hedge fund Morgan Creek Digital Assets and a Bitcoin investor. Just start very small, do research, learn about it, Pompliano says. But some would even want you to go that far, which is why all sorts of arguments occur over Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies as a whole. The debate over Bitcoin isn't new, as it's raised various concerns over the years by those in finance and in the government. Billionaire Warren Buffett deems cryptocurrencies have no value and don't produce anything. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, another longtime skeptic, said at New York Times conference earlier in February that Bitcoin is an extremely inefficient way of conducting transactions. There is also the risk of a certain kind of Bitcoin that isn't real in the currency sense. There have been multiple examples of Bitcoin theft and fraud that I would think would give pause to the average investor, particularly if you were going to invest a substantial amount. I think those are legitimate fears, one expert says. Of course, some of the safety that Bitcoin offers is how it can't be hacked for a very basic reason. To hack it, you would have to take over the network, and then to take over the network, you would need to own your own network of computers running 24/7. And to do that, it would cost billions of dollars, according to Paul Vigna, markets reporter at the Wall Street Journal. So like many things, it's a risk, it's a gamble, and yet, Bitcoin endures. Trust the hype? The honest-to-goodness thing about hype is that hype is fleeting in certain ways. You can be hyped for a movie and then see it and realize it doesn't always meet your expectations. Bitcoin can be the same way if you are not careful. You'll find yourself getting invested in it and are hyped to make money, but then when it doesn't explode when you were told it would, it's going to bring you back down. There are many reasons to go and invest in Bitcoin, we're not going to deny that, but there are many cautions and warnings to consider as well should you want to take the plunge. So as with all investments, be mindful, be careful, and don't overreach. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Bitcoin and the various hype surrounding it and everything that goes on with it? Do you better understand now why so many people are interested in it? Do you see why companies like Tesla want to invest in it for one reason or another? Will Bitcoin and other entities like it become a more mainstream form of currency over time? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the channel.